Greetings. This is your nosy G here, coming to you with, the Kenobi Episode 5 podcast for State of Star Wars. And joining me here is...
the always fantastic and reliable Captain Ensign.
Yep, he's back for more. Indeed. Next.
And this is the Spider-Man Mania again.
And...
Jedi Knight Luke, and it's time to let some hate flow through me.
Okay, so let's get on with this. So first, I guess we should say our brief summary of our thoughts on this episode. So who wants to go first to say that?
I'll go first. Why? Because I think I can summarize my thoughts the quickest. My summaries, or my thoughts about this episode summarized into just one question. What the hell do Lucasfilm think they're doing?
That's one question. Okay, so I guess next person, Henson.
Alright, so this was the best episode of the series so far. Not saying much, but it is what it is. Finally got the flashback I've been waiting for since before the show was even announced. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's Henson. Doan.
Some few words. How much should I lower my expectations?
Who knows? So there is that. As for me, well, I guess it's a combo of Luke, it's a combo of Doan's, and also the part of the flashback that Henson mentioned. So that's pretty much my thoughts. Yeah, flashback, best part. The rest, yeah, what the hell. So that's literally my summary of this. So, yep. So in regards to that, well, now we shall get into the episode itself. So this begins with basically an Imperial captain basically tells the third sister to basically board the breach of the Imperial Star Destroyer, where she pretty much... Vader wants to know where Kenobi is. Reva pretty much says, oh, they're in Jabim. So Vader's like, good, kneel before me in the presence of the bridge. And Reva pretty much gets her rank of the Grand Inquisitor and then orders the captain to set a course for Jabim immediately. So that's how this begins. And then meanwhile, the freight transport that was carrying Obi-Wan, Roken, and Tala arrives on Jabim and lands. They disembark, and Kenobi's there surprised to see Hajjai Street, the fake Jedi from Episode 2, who revealed that he escaped Daiju after his fight with her sister. And then apparently the Galactic Empire put a bounty on him, so he's a fugitive, so yeah. Then Kenobi speaks with Roken, telling him that he needs to get Leia back to Alderaan, but Roken says that they need to pretty much get all these people out of Jabim as soon as possible before he can even do that request. So yeah, and so there is that. But unfortunately, there's a problem, and turns out that Vader's Star Destroyer arrives, and that's pretty much the Jabim forces in. They're forced to stay there until they can deal with the Star Destroyer, because apparently the secret tracker that was inside of Lola has pretty much activated the droid into disabling the hangar roof that allows the ships to leave. So they're pretty much stranded in the planet. So yeah, and they have to pretty much prepare to get to war. Kenobi gives a quick speech on that they need to pretty much be strong and be ready for the fight. And so yeah, that's what happens. So yeah, that's the beginning of the episode. So what do you guys think of that?
Well, not much to really say here. Reva got what she wanted, but of course, Sith be Sith, so you kind of figure where that's all going to lead to. But it was something I will bring up, and it's a point that I should have made in episode 4 podcast if I had been in it, is that my friend Donnie brought this up, that one of the biggest issues with this show is we're meant to believe that this show is giving Kenobi an arc. That, he starts off as giving up on life, essentially, and then slowly becoming how he is in episode 4. But the thing is, the show doesn't show that progression. At one moment, he's, barely able to hold fight against Vader. He can't move a communicator. But then, the next moment, he's able to hold in place glass, keeping back, like, tons and tons and tons of water. And now he's coming back to the Obi-Wan he was during the prequels. And, of course, like I said, the show hasn't done any kind of job at actually showing that progression. So, in terms of that, we have a major fucking problem. Of course, nothing can be done about it now. You know, we only have one episode left.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make here is that even on a fundamental level, you can't even argue that this is a character arc for Obi-Wan. He doesn't actually have an arc in his own show, even though it's clearly meant to be. And of course, you know, another big problem is that Vader...
Oh.
The issue here is that we were sold. This show was sold on this being the rematch of the century. Those are Kennedy's own words. That the big draw for this show was Obi-Wan, Vader meeting between 3 and 4. And you hear so many people, particularly those of the Phantom Menace variety, claim that Reva took away focus from Obi-Wan. But that's really not the case, though. She took away focus from Vader. And then, of course, the other big issue is that you were led to believe, or at least I was led to believe, that because this was meant to be, or we were told this was the rematch of the century between Obi-Wan and Vader, that Obi-Wan would have a good reason as to why he's crossing paths with Vader. You know, maybe he's going out there to try to save his brother, #one last ride, or maybe going out to finally kill him. But instead, what we got is a show where he has no stakes in Vader. You know, he's not trying to go after him. He's constantly just trying to run away from Vader. His main focus is keeping Leia safe. So it's like, we don't even have anything to be invested in there. So between Obi-Wan not having an arc, even though it's clearly meant to be one, him and Vader having, like, no story, like, Obi-Wan doesn't care about Vader in this show. This is a fucking problem. And, obviously, the series has many, many, many fucking issues. But, fundamentally speaking, even the bare minimum, what you came to this show for, or at least what some of us came here for. I'm not going to make a broad judgment like that. It failed to deliver. Who's at fault? I don't know. I'm sure, like Book of Boba Fett, actually, I'm pretty sure this show did have a massive rewrite.
Book of Boba Fett, the problem was that, as discussed in one of our previous Star Wars videos, its biggest problem was that it was supposed to be a different show. It was basically Mandalorian Season 3, but because it was unable to release in 2021, and Lucasfilm wanted a Jon Favreau show by that year, it pretty much had the idea of pretty much splitting the Boba Fett arc from Season 3 and making its own show, and they expanded it. That's why it feels like it has two halves. So Book of Boba Fett was made out of a need to meet a quota of Jon Favreau.
The only reason why Robert Rodriguez directed those episodes is to get in Disney's good graces so we could possibly get to do Alita 2.
Yes. So
there are main similarities I see between Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi is that they brought back these, popular prequel era actors, right? Tamar Morrison, Ewan McGregor,
yeah.
But I think their thinking process stopped right after that because they didn't do anything that had any substance.
There's that.
Say this in regards to the actors thing. Like, I don't blame Tamara Morrison for
I don't either.
For how he portrayed Boba Fett in Book of Boba Fett, because, that's just the direction he was given. But and I think we can all agree here, the acting in this show, for the most part, is really good. Like, look at Ewan McGregor's face in, like, any scene. It, like, says, like, 1,000 words. Like, going back to episode 2 when Reva tells him that Anakin is alive, it just seeing his face just reacting to that, like, Ewan McGregor is like a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So
So, yeah, and of course, like I said, the main issue is that Obi-Wan is meant to have an arc, but
there is none.
they don't do anything with it. They just, I don't even want to say they rush it. He just goes from point A to point B and skipping the, line that connects the two.
They literally skipped it. It's almost like they wanted us to believe that the Bacta tank resurgence is what made him stronger. Kind of like how Saiyans in Dragon Ball Z, when they come from near death, they get stronger and stuff. Something like that. It seems like it. Which, yeah, that doesn't work here. That's not how it works.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I know a lot of people, and I think this was really fucking annoying, had an issue with the fact that at the start of the show, Obi-Wan was, well, kind of a fucking mess, comparing him to Jake Skywalker. And of course, one could make the argument that he didn't need to be that. But I think I even argued this in the first podcast, is that with unlike Luke, Obi-Wan has a reason to feel like that. Just the baggage of everything. And so, seeing him get this arc, I think is like really fucking cool. Again, it didn't need to be the arc he got, but I think if you are gonna put him in that position, you have enough justification for it. And so to see him go from this broken man dealing with PTSD and the baggage of like everything that happened in the prequel trilogy, and then seeing him get to a point where he's overcome that would have been amazing. But we just didn't get it.
No, and it's so late for it.
And of course, instead of Vader playing a major role in there, he really fucking didn't.
And the parts he did play, oh god, oh Christ.
So yeah, we can keep going.
And yeah, so anyway, yeah, let's get to the next part. So the beginning, yeah, they're pretty much preparing to fight. So Vader sends pretty much two ships with stormtroopers, sports troopers ready to pretty much just blast the shit out of the doors open. And Reva joins them, of course, and are pretty much destroying the shit out of the doors. And Tala pretty much urges Roken to work on reopening the hangar roof, but they're having some difficulties. So then Leia volunteers to go to the vents to investigate what's obstructing the hangar roof and pretty much repair it herself. So yeah.
Wait a second. Vader has no emotional reactions towards the planet Jabim, which means that there is no significant history.
There's nothing. I mean, Javim before this show was just a brief mention in the Force Awakens beginner's game. That's it.
I mean, here's the issue with that. If you're gonna use a planet significant planets such as Jabim, which was a central plot point for Anakin Skywalker in the previous continuity, while you're dealing a story about Anakin and Obi-Wan, I mean, you should put more symbolic meaning towards that, rather than just putting there for reference sake.
Well, I mean, I will say this. As someone who doesn't want EU stuff in the new canon, fuck that. I'm glad they didn't go that route.
Well, it is, but it just begs the question, why is Jabim even here?
Same reason why they add any EU thing. It's there.
Oh, basically
Of course, I mean, like I said, I don't want EU stuff there. But if you are going to throw in a planet, then yeah, you take out all the significance. It's bad enough we already have EU shit in the new canon. I don't want any more. So I'm happy they didn't have any kind of Star Wars Republic reference, because that would have just ruined that. Of course, I say ruined, but the show is the show after all. But no.
Well, there is that. So yeah. Anyway, this is basically Disney Star Wars Jabim, so there is that. Anyway, so basically, yeah, the Empire blasting the shit at the door. Jabim forces, they're pretty much going to hold off the Empire. Leia's trying to open the door, so yeah. And while that's going on, Kenobi listens to a quick message that was left by Senator Bail Organa in his holo projector, his portable one, which, interesting, but And apparently, Organa says like he's worried that there's lack of communication, fears that Vader has found Kenobi or learned about the children, and he does not hear from Kenobi soon. He will travel to Tatooine to protect Owen, Lars, and Luke. And so there's that. And then following transmission, Kenobi reassures Tala he'll be alright. And then, well, Tala reveals that she apparently was back then when she was serving the Empire forced to kill four sensitive families because supposedly they were going to kill them because they were guilty of something, but no, it was because they were force sensitive. So yeah, Tala didn't like that, so that's why she defected. So she tells that story and she wants to make amends for those wrongdoings. So yeah, and then while the others are buckling under pressure, Kenobi then tells the defenders to buy time, and that he's going to buy time by pretty much distracting the third sister. So Reva orders a ceasefire, and she walks into the door, gets close to it, and Kenobi does too from the other side. And they pretty much have this discussion where basically he's like questioning Reva, like how does she know Vader's identity as Anakin? And then Kenobi realizes that Reva must have been a youngling that witnessed Anakin leading the attack on the Jedi Temple during Order 66. And, well, Reva basically, she reveals that she had, well, survived by playing dead. So that's what Kenobi realized, that Reva is planning to actually kill Vader. So she just went after Kenobi for the sake of doing that. And after that, well, Reva decides to basically rejects Kenobi's offer to help, and so believes that she will triumph over Vader all by herself. And then she uses the lightsaber to pretty much cut her way through and open the door, and that's where the big battle starts. So before we get to the humongous battle, so guys, what do you think of this?
Yeah, but I do not buy the fact that Reva was forced to pretend, quote unquote, pretend to be evil, because she was pretty much evil as we saw in episode 1. It isn't like she kind of like enjoyed being evil. I don't know what to say. Like this sudden new character arc of her, forcing to kill force sensitives, and doing all this to remain close to Vader so she can have revenge. I do not buy this plot point at all. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll say this. We have no reason to believe that she is actually good inside. The way I read it is that she doesn't care about anyone anymore. She only lives to eventually get to Vader. So, become the Grand Inquisitor, get close to him, and then kill him.
Yeah, but
as dark side users.
But what I notice when I see Rebels or Star Wars, other comics, is like you don't necessarily need to be a Grand Inquisitor in order to stay in proximity to Vader. Like, what's the point of getting the Grand Inquisitor rank then? Like, Vader's gonna give you orders and brief you when he's gonna send you out to kill Force sensitive or remaining Jedi.
I guess the reason why she wanted the Grand Inquisitor role, other than getting close to Vader, is probably so maybe she could have influence on others so that they can help her achieve her goal. I think that would
not to mention the Grand Inquisitor would just get in the way.
Oh, that too, yeah.
There's that too.
So yeah, that's probably the reason why. So yeah, Luke, what do you think of all this?
So, I've got to be honest, from a pure emotional investment standpoint, the conversation between Obi-Wan and Reva was one of the only things in this entire episode that gripped me in any way. And is it worth mentioning? Well, actually, we already kind of did mention it, but Reva opens up to Obi-Wan about the fact, as already mentioned, that fellow younglings were killed. And we actually see it happen in the flashback.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another issue I have. Like, here's the thing. Like, Inquisitors all were ex-Jedis, right? Most of them are.
Yeah.
So, like, they would know that their ex-comrades were all killed by Vader or, the Empire. And despite knowing that they are still doing this thing, so it makes you ask this question. Like, do these other Inquisitors also have this hatred towards Vader? Or what's going on? Is it only the third sister doing this?
Here's the thing about dark side users. They all want to usurp one another. Sure, some of them may have a more personal reason than others, but at the end of the day, they all want ultimate power.
That much is true, yeah. But in regards to personal reasons against Vader, Reva seems to be the only one. So,
Well, as far as we know.
yeah. So there is that. Anything else to mention on what we discussed?
Well, just that it was really... Of course, I mean, it's always nice to see the Jedi Temple, even if, because it's shot in the volume, it always looks off. At least in my opinion. But other than that, it's fucking fantastic to see Hayden donning the Jedi robes, the hood, killing kids.
Speaking of that, I do have problems with the Jedi Temple. If you see the background, there aren't any single ships flying in the background. Like, this is the most boring Coruscant scene I have ever seen in live action. Like, there's no ships flying. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, because there is one scene before we get to the Jedi Temple, or I think it's after, that basically we see like the landscape of Coruscant, and we only see buildings. We don't see any flying vehicles or of any type. So
I think in regards to the lack of ships, I think that is just a budget thing, because keep in mind, these shows aren't made on an unlimited budget.
I guess there is that, but I have noticed that this show seems to have a bigger budget than Book of Boba Fett, because Book of Boba Fett, in the first half, it looked like the budget was really limited.
I mean, also keep in mind, there was a reason why they got Robert Rodriguez to direct that whole show.
Yeah.
He's the guy you want to get if you want something done fast, cheap, and efficient.
Yeah.
And the quality you want of it. So for something like this, yeah, it's more in the vein of Mando than Book of Boba Fett, but like I said, like, it may have a big budget compared to most television, but it's not going to have anywhere near the budget as one of the movies. That's just wishful thinking. Or I should say unrealistic thinking. Does it suck? Yes, but you can't blame the show for that.
Maybe what they should have done is, instead of showing a scene of the entire landscape of Coruscant, they should have just shown like the Jedi Temple, like from like one of those shots where you see the Jedi Temple in the full building, and then you go into it. Maybe that would have been easier. So then the fight begins, and it starts with Kenobi using the Force to pretty much hurl Reva back, and then the entire battle begins. The Stormtroopers are shooting, the Jabin forces are shooting. So yeah, pretty much everyone is just shooting at each other. The Stormtroopers are trying to get in to breach the facility, and Obi-Wan is trying to use his lightsaber to pretty much deflect some projectiles and stuff. So yeah. So basically, they're trying to hold off, but unfortunately, there's too many Stormtroopers, so they have to fall back into the facility. So they pretty much do that, and then there is this one point where Tala apparently gets wounded, and pretty much Ned B, her droid cargo droid, pretty much has to fight the Stormtroopers in order to get her out, but it's unable to, and so Kenobi tries to assist her and tries to rescue her by striking down some Stormtroopers and deflecting blasters, but it's not possible. So Ned B's soaking several blaster bolts until Tala basically gets a thermal detonator out and activates it and detonates the hallway, while Kenobi managed to get behind the inner blast door. So yeah, Tala is dead, as well as her droid Ned B is also destroyed. So yeah, Kenobi and the surviving fighters were forced to retreat to the inner sanctum of the base, only to find that Leia still has not opened the hangar roof, so there is that. And then there's an Imperial captain that informs Lord Vader that Reva has breached the inner sanctum, but Vader is like, tell the third sister to stand down, Kenobi's already at our hands. And so yeah, that happens, and believing that they have lost, Kenobi pretty much wants to surrender to Lord Vader. Roken objects to this, but then Kenobi is like, I need to stop Vader's advance. I need to save everyone. So pretty much, then he gives Haja his lightsaber and his holoprojector and his blaster to him, and to look after Leia. And so then Roken asks, how are you going to fight Vader? And it's like, there are other ways of fighting him. So yeah, and then Kenobi goes out the blaster and surrenders to the Imperials. So yeah. So that happens, and Kenobi's brought to Reva, and who then orders her troops to inform Vader that she managed to capture him. And then basically Reva tells Kenobi, Lord Vader's on his way. And then Kenobi's like, you're not bringing him to me, I'm bringing him to you. And Reva's like, So, yeah, and then two stormtroopers take Kenobi inside the base. So, Reva's like getting ready to see Vader. So, yeah. So that happens. So before we get to, I guess, the last third of this episode, so what do you guys think of the whole Battle of Jabim, if you want to call it that?
Lame!
Shame about the droid. He's probably the best character in the show.
Could agree. Look.
When it comes to Tala's sacrifice, I'm of two minds. I think that her death scene itself was done well, but I don't think it was necessary to kill her off. At least not now.
Go on.
Because there were several seconds between when she gets shot and when she ultimately decides to sacrifice herself. And whilst that is a very noble thing to do in such a situation, all there really was in Obi-Wan's way was stormtroopers. Yet he wasn't, I don't think at least he was as proactive as he could have been to try and save her.
Well, there's that, but supposedly this Kenobi is not what he used to be, so even if he already is more proficient with the lightsaber and force powers, he's not his Jedi Knight levels of strong as he was in episode 3 or even 2. I think he's more on the lines of Padawan levels, kind of like episode 1 in a way. So that's what he seems to be his power level at the moment, at least Padawan. Still doesn't explain how he managed to get it in hours between episodes 3 and 4, but that's what it seems to be right now. So he's not strong enough to hold off an entire army of stormtroopers, pretty much breaching into the hallway of the PAF facility.
To be fair, no one would be.
A Jedi Master could. So, the likes of...
Even Jedi Masters have their limits. If you have, I don't know, what was that, 20, 30 guys shooting at you, no matter how good you are, at least one of those shots is going to land. There's a reason why fucking battle droids could overpower an army of Jedi. I'm just saying.
But then again, Obi-Wan did survive the clone troopers attacking him in Coruscant, so that makes me question if he could survive against genetically superior competent soldiers and these regular humans. Yeah.
To be fair, that was in a large, open area. And this is a small, confined area. Not to mention, he had somebody else there to help him out, too.
Yeah, Yoda. And also, that was episode 3 Obi-Wan, where he was probably...
Is at his prime.
Yeah, so there's that, too. So, yeah. Indeed. Dolan, you wanted to talk about the Battle of Jabim itself, since you said it was lame?
Yes, well, here's the thing. Jabim, to us EU fans, is a very, very important planet due to the war between the Republic and the Separatists. And now this planet is going to be remembered for this show, instead of the masterpiece that was Battle of Jabim and In the Shadow of Their Fathers. Seriously, man. This is the Jabim the general audience are going to remember from now on. Not the Jabim we saw from the comics.
But
to be fair, most people who watch this show wouldn't have even heard of the Republic comics, so there is that.
Well, yeah, unfortunately.
Of course, the issue of nowadays, if people think of Jabim, it's going to be this show. Yeah, that does suck, but let's be honest, most of the people who watch this show, same with TCW, most people watching these shows don't know who Quinlan Voss is, don't know what Jabim is. At most, they know who Grand Admiral Thrawn is, but that's only because that is the most well-known EU thing ever.
Basic normie stuff.
Yeah. Indeed. So, stinks, but yeah, that's how it is. So anyway, anything else to mention on this?
No.
Okay. Then we get to basically Lord Vader arriving in the scene, And well, basically, he asks Reva to tell him where Kenobi is. She tells him that Kenobi's inside, and Vader's like, okay, I'll get him by myself. So he's going all alone inside the hallway. So there's that. Meanwhile, Kenobi somehow breaks free from his 2 stormtrooper captors, which I guess should have been expected, because 2 stormtroopers against Kenobi, yeah, it's gonna take him down. So yeah, and he flees inside the facility, and Leia's still searching for trying to repair the controls to open the hangar roof. And she manages to spot Lola, her droid, and grabs it, and she sees that there's a restraining bolt in behind it. She removes it and frees the droid, and then well, they pretty much get back into repairing the roof doors. In fact, they actually managed to do it, and they open the doors. So that happened, and then once the doors are open, they pretty much are all evacuating in the transports. They're all heading for the transports. So, yep, they're all boarding the transports, getting ready to board them and everything. And the transports are leaving. And then Vader manages to show up in the hangar bay, and he manages to use the Force to force grip one of the entire freighters. And he literally manages to force it down the ground, and then he rips apart walls and stuff. And then apparently the transport had nobody inside, because turns out there was a second transport there that somehow waited for Vader to literally just drag down the transport, and so it could just take off, and Vader just sees the transport and it leaves. Like, just one Vader standing there doing nothing a second time in this show.
This reminds me of 2 things. One is the bait they tried to pull with Chewbacca on the Rise of Alien Maker, where he obviously got blown up but somehow ended it in a different ship. Remember that?
Well, yeah, but if you ask me, this is worse than that, because at least in that, like, the transport side escaped and they just force grip one. In this one, the transport was just there in the hangar, like, just kind of blending in the background, at least when you see the show. And Vader somehow did not, see there was a second transport. He was, so fixated in that one transport that had nobody inside. Somehow he couldn't sense that there was nobody inside it. He was just wasting his damn time with it.
And number 2, Galen Merrick, commonly known as
Starkiller.
Yes. What does Vader do here? Pull down the ship with the Force.
He could do that, but the stupidest here is... Actually, you know what? Luke, take it away. I know you wanted to rant about this.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick thing. You can't really compare Vader pulling down a ship to what Starkiller did, because all Vader did was pull down a transport here, whereas Starkiller redirected a Star Destroyer, but that's a completely different matter. So, right, for a start, at the beginning of the episode, we only see that one transport in the hangar, correct?
Mm-hmm. The second one is there, but you have to there in the hangar, land, but you have to really pick your eyes in there. It almost blends with the background.
Right, okay. But, so, either way, so Vader gets into the hangar, and he halts the first transport that takes off with the Force. And this is something general that you've mentioned in private conversation. Hopefully you don't mind me mentioning it here. How are Vader's senses, as in Force senses, not attuned enough, apparently, to where he can't sense the lack of life on the first transport, if it was fake?
There's that.
But wouldn't the other... Wait a second. Wouldn't the other ship make any noise while the engine is there was no sound, was it?
No, there was sound. You heard it turn on. You see, here's the thing, though. The bigger issue here is that when the second ship leaves, it does so unrealistically quickly.
Well,
I would say that's the bigger issue.
Well, there's that, but look, go on.
Hold on. So first transport, there was no life. Somehow Vader couldn't sense that, but at least he was being proactive in trying to lure the stragglers out, right? Mm-hmm. But then the second transport flies away, and what does Vader do? Nothing. Literally, fuck all. He does nothing. The very thing we saw him do to the first transport, he doesn't even try to do to the second one, because Vader doing the intelligent thing here would further go against the original trilogy than this show has already done. So they just make him a complete idiot. As I said, he doesn't even try. This Vader is a fucking moron.
Here's the thing. So, this is also a good point to start bringing up the flashbacks. But I would say the idea here, since we are getting these flashbacks, and the whole point of these flashbacks is to show that, yeah, Anakin is really fucking impulsive. And so, he does this. He sees a ship leaving. He's hyper-fixated on this ship. Not really thinking straight. Pulls it down. Fucking wrecks its shit. Unleashes the Force, if you will. And then, the second transport leaves. And of course, with us getting these flashbacks, we can be led to believe that he's also thinking about that moment. And so he's just realizing that, oh shit, I'm still the learner, not the master.
There's one thing I do have a problem is, they're trying to make Vader look like a complete idiot, but you also have to remember, Vader, as Anakin Skywalker, was one of the most competent generals in the Clone Wars. Let's not forget this. The show seems to forget that Anakin Skywalker was a brilliant military tactician and a skilled warrior in the Clone Wars.
Well, actually,
remember that?
Let us also not forget that he also let Luke go in episode 5.
Well, this is where I bring up one of the previous episodes. In this episode 5, yeah, he has the flashback, so it seems to be that the flashback is making him. But what about episode 3? What's the excuse there? Why did he allow Obi-Wan to escape there? Why? There was no flashback there.
I can answer that by asking this question. Why did Vader let Luke go in episode 5?
5, there's a good reason. Luke literally fell off it, and he was attempting.
General, Vader could have force grabbed Luke and pulled him back up.
It could have, but then
the point I'm trying to make here is that Vader kind of has a track record of this, of just letting people he wants go, even if he spends fucking years going after them.
Yeah,
he'll still just let them go.
But here's the thing I have to differentiate between Luke and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is the man he despises with all the thing he's been waiting for 10 years. Waiting for that one day to finally put Obi-Wan out of his misery. Compared to Luke, his son that he's actually conflicted.
But he did spend 4 years searching for him. And then when he finally has him, he just lets him go for no reason.
Yeah, but look, the easy explanation is he's conflicted. So there was one thing that Vader probably assumed. Oh, so he chose death. So that's probably Vader thought it was dead until, of course, he was actually rescued by the Falcon. So with Obi-Wan, there's no explanation there. He could have just went around the fire on top of it, or even gripped Obi-Wan the droid with Force grip. There was zero reason for Vader to let Obi-Wan leave. Zero. In fact, that last third only makes this episode and 4 even more stupid when Vader shows up, because in episode 4, Vader's chastising Reva, how could you let this happen? How could you let Obi-Wan rescue? Moron, you let Obi-Wan escape in the previous episode. Why are you literally just shitting on Reva for her doing this? Are you kidding me?
You say that as if Vader has any kind of respect for any of the Inquisitors.
Well, no.
Which he doesn't.
Well, no, but it makes you wonder what. Everybody's dude, didn't you let him go last time? How? Isn't it your fault? Was he going to just now seem like a complete hypocrite in front of everybody? That I don't think is a good image for the second Dark Lord of the Sith, or the main Dark Lord of the Sith, actually, because Palpatine is hiding that.
And another thing I've been wondering is this shows that one thing the flashback duel shows is that Anakin is using a more aggressive axe, while Obi-Wan, master of Sorizu, blah blah blah, is more defensive, and Obi-Wan managed to defeat Anakin because Anakin is rash, he's more aggressive, and goes too much on the hostile forms, which makes me wonder, like, you didn't learn, this cutscene is obviously before episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, meaning that Anakin didn't learn his lesson from this and decides to use the same tactics against Obi-Wan, using the aggressive attacks without, thinking, and then he got defeated, which makes you wonder if Anakin is already an idiot who doesn't learn from things, even during
He is a slow learner.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being slow and borderline retarded.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Anakin is also an arrogant son of a bitch. So I can totally believe that he would just keep doing the same thing, especially since, it kind of works well for him throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars and also throughout Episode 3. He thinks he's the hot shit by the time we get to the end of that movie. And also keep in mind, those two were evenly matched in Episode 3 for, 11 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I don't see the issue here.
The issue with Vader literally letting Obi-Wan go in Episode 3.
No, not that. I mean Anakin being aggressive and losing this sparring match.
Oh, this.
Vader letting Obi-Wan go, honestly, does not bother me. We've seen him let people go before,
But there were
and
better
not
reasons for
really
it. This one
show
doesn't.
any signs of giving a shit.
In this one, there's no fucking reason, and there's even less reason when you consider that in Rebels he's still searching Kenobi, and the next 2 episodes he's still doing that too. So, it makes you wonder why the fuck did he even let him go in Episode 3? Like that's.
Of course, one could also make the argument that chasing Kenobi at that point is the only reason he's alive. I mean, yeah, sure, it's also killing the Emperor, but once he finally captures Kenobi, then what?
Then what? Well, same.
Then what?
He finally has the revenge he has been looking for decades.
Yeah, but then that just leaves you with this empty feeling.
Then again, he's always had it ever since he lost Padme. So.
And his mother.
Well, yeah, but getting revenge on Kenobi gave him life. Once you complete that goal that you've been, on for that many years.
Yeah, but
then what?
He is the justification on how Vader kept on living in the EU. It's his hatred towards himself which kept him alive or something like that.
Well, that's the EU. In here, supposedly it's his hatred for Kenobi. It's supposedly his hatred, and once he finally gets it, for some dumb reason he lets him go. And if he had any self not self-criticism, but at least maybe think himself, why did I let him go? Why did I do this or something? Like at least give us a reason for why I let him go. There's no reason in Episode 3. He's still the same fixated, obsessed person for Kenobi. It's just. It's almost like the show's director and writer wants to literally just ignore that Vader just let him go at the end of Episode 3, and that he's just doing the same shit like he wanted to do at the beginning of the show. Like, what? You want us to forget that so easily?
This makes me think they're trying to portray Vader in the most incompetent and laughable way possible.
He's so dumb that even Johnny Bravo could outsmart him at this point. I'm convinced of that.
Oh, guys, do you mind if I say a little something about the flashback?
Yeah, go on.
Go on.
Thank you. So, for me, this was great stuff. Anakin and Obi-Wan are my favourite Jedi duo, so to get anything with them, especially in newer Star Wars media, we don't get moments between these two quite as much these days compared to back in the prequel era itself. So to get this scene was great. And yeah, it was definitely very much kind of nostalgiaville. And I think now we should bring up something that Doan mentioned, that being the way Anakin speaks.
Yeah, so let me go on first. I know Hayden Christensen's voice changed since Revenge of the Sith, but you're not gonna convince me if someone in the higher up convinced him, or Hayden Christensen, for whatever reason, decided to mimic the voice patterns of Matt Lanter, because that's not how he normally talks. I've seen him talk in interviews, and he doesn't sound like that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
He thinks...
I didn't get that at all.
Doan thinks that Hayden is trying to mimic Matt Lanter with the way he speaks. As
I didn't
Anakin.
get that at all.
Same. There's only...
He sounds nothing like Matt Lanter.
There's only one word, not even one line, one word, where I can kind of see Doan's point. You know, in the second part of the flashback where Anakin says, "Mercy doesn't defeat an enemy master, which is why you're gonna lose." The word "lose" to me did sound kind of close to Matt Lanter, but everything else sounded like Hayden to me.
Yeah, I mean, he just has a deeper voice now.
And am I the only one who is shocked that he was able to make himself sound as authentically like his prequel movie self as he did with his voice register, considering how much deeper it is now?
I mean, honestly, I'm just happy they didn't TH him. It was great seeing him just be him. Oh, also something important to note. At the start of the flashback, when we see him looking out onto Coruscant, he's looking at Padme's apartment.
And another thing I have to say is, I'm the type of person who do care about visual and audio continuity, and I know Hayden Christensen is old, so his voice doesn't sound like he did in the prequels, but seriously.
You're the only one who has that issue. Because I don't get that at all.
This is something Henson mentioned earlier, but I think it should be highlighted again. And this is one of the only positives that Kenobi has running throughout. The performances from the cast are all brilliant, and Hayden and Ewan still bounce off of each other here like time hasn't passed at all.
It does feel like the 2000s.
And the choreography, oh god damn, it felt good to get this kind of choreography again after all these fucking years.
Yeah, but that just makes you realize that these are nothing but distractions, and the main plot is, let's just say, interesting.
I gave up on the main plot long time ago. So, all I wanted, I've said this before, prequel actors doing shit. I was getting that, but obviously, not doing the shit I wanted. But then finally, a flashback, finally giving me these two actors playing these two characters in my favorite fucking era. An era that this current tenure of Lucasfilm still barely does anything with. So to see it again, and to see these two again, see that choreography again, it's like, I'd say this show, regardless of its quality, it was fucking worth it just for this.
Just to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't have to watch this series at all. I can just watch the flashbacks. It gave me exactly what I wanted. Because God knows when we'll ever get live-action prequel content again.
Seeing and their prequel makes you feel like you're back in 2000s again. So
it makes me feel like we actually got people in Lucasfilm who actually care about the prequels.
In some way.
Yeah.
But we do know Hayden is gonna... I don't know if this was actually confirmed, or this is just a big guess, but I think Hayden Christensen is meant to show up in Ahsoka.
Well...
And if he does, that would be fucking amazing. You have him, he's excited about Star Wars, fucking put him in as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I'd like him to be more than just Kenobi, because so far this show has not really taken much potential of having Hayden here. Just one flashback, one quick vision that Obi-Wan has, and also the flashback of Order 66, but so far that's it. I've wanted some Clone Wars flashbacks, like having Ewan and Hayden with it could be their episode 3 outfits, or they could go a step further for fan service and have them use the TCW 2008 outfits, and we have them see even battling some live-action battle droids, which I know you want to see, Henson. We could have had that.
Yeah. Have Matthew Wood reprise his, droid boys and Anakin talking to more troopers, all that kind of cool stuff, but I guess I was dreaming too much.
Yeah.
In fact, with what you said about Clone Wars era flashbacks, They could have established some kind of, even if it wasn't exactly the same as what was depicted in the EU, they could have given a flashback that depicted some sort of battle on Jabim in the Clone Wars era and done the whole TCW fan service with the old outfits.
Or,
Wouldn't want that at all.
or it doesn't have to be
I know-
just put some other planet, whichever one.
I mean, here's the thing, though. If we were only ever going to get one flashback, I'm glad we got the one we got. Because, yeah, don't get me wrong. I, too, was, like, I was, like, rooting for Clone Wars flashbacks. But I got to see these two actors in their Episode 2 outfits, which I never thought I would see again. So I would say it was a good trade-off.
We still could have had that, plus have Clone Wars.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we were only ever going to get one, I'm glad we got this one.
I meant that we could have had the flashback have them using the episode 2 outfits, but having the Clone Wars start. Like the very beginning of the Clone Wars, something like that. We could have had
The thing I was saying is, like, when Hayden Christensen was stated to reprise his role, I was at the time heavily conflicted about this because, I mean, I would like to see Hayden Christensen in more Star Wars material, but I don't want him to just be in the Darth Vader armor for the entire show. So I'm glad that isn't the case. But he doesn't have his facial screen time, if you know what I'm trying to say.
As in, you don't see him as Anakin very much.
Yeah. Or they could have actually done the thing they did in Rebels, where when, Darth Vader's suit was damaged, actually Matt Lantern's voice comes out, mixed with James Earl Jones. You could do that with Hayden Christensen's voice also.
I wonder if we'll get a moment like that in the next episode.
There's a very good possibility of that happening.
Well, speaking of the next episode, I think we should let's just finish this the summary of this episode before we get into more detail.
Yeah, because I got a theory.
Okay.
So General, do you mind if I take on the Vader Reaver stuff?
Okay, let me just say the entire summary. Okay, so continuing on, after what happened to the transports, then Reva is like ready to stab Vader with a lightsaber, but Vader like manages to block it, and from here, well, Vader versus Reva, because
It's not even a fight, it's boring as hell. We know Vader is intentionally toying with it.
Yeah,
It was nice seeing him make her his bitch. This coming from someone who didn't really care for Reva, though it was nice having him just show off his abilities.
And, the third sister must have been high in drugs if she think she had even a slight chance against Darth Vader.
I mean, those are just dark side users for you. They're kind of stupid. But I will say this, though. This was such a Vader thing to do, him revealing that he knew it was her the whole time. I just got Force Unleashed vibes from that.
Which then, when you got to the flashback of 466, it looks like Anakin stabbed her when she was a youngling. Like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, she survived that.
Yeah, she somehow survived that, and she gets stabbed here a second time. And then of course, the Grand Inquisitor shows up.
Oh, I told you people that he wasn't dead.
No, here's the thing. We knew he wasn't dead because he was in Rebels. What I was wondering, I don't know if these two guys were wondering also, is the kind of convoluted / horrendous justification for his quote-unquote resurrection. That was what I was wondering. I know he was gonna come back to life, to say, but how they would justify it was the issue.
Just very quickly, General, do you mind if I just say something about the Vader versus Reva thing?
Yeah, go on.
To me, the Vader versus Reva thing, with Vader toying with her and even going so far as to fight her, to me that makes absolutely no sense because several years before the events of Kenobi, Jedi Fallen Order takes place, and at the end of that game, Trilla Suduri, aka the second sister, is killed on the spot right after she lets go of her hate for her former mentor, Seer Janda. So, several years before the events of this show, the Inquisitor that literally preceded Reva, Vader kills on the spot, even though Trilla didn't do anything to Vader. But here, Reva literally tries to murder Vader, and then when Vader stabs her, he doesn't make sure she's dead. Like, what the heck is this? Look, what is this inconsistency in Vader's mode of thinking? Seriously.
Inconsistency. I mean, there's a big difference between a dark side user losing the hate within them and a dark side user who's a dark side user to the very end. Not to mention, as the Grand Inquisitor says, and he says something along the lines of time for you to, go back to where you belong in the gutter or something, just leave her there to die.
But here's the thing, Vader and Grand Inquisitor of all people knew that you have to finish them off. Because Obi-Wan didn't finish Vader off, he returned. Because Reva wasn't, cautious and tried to kill Grand Inquisitor, they actually came back. Which makes me believe that, I don't know, you two people of all the Darksiders in the galaxy should check once again whether this bitch is alive or not. Should you guys do that?
I mean, here's the thing, though. She's not a threat, and these are two dark side users who are one, powerful, and also arrogant as shit, and also she has no more resources, nowhere to go, and even if she tries to fight them, as we just saw, she stands no fucking chance. So leaving her there to just die is like, sure, and even if she does somehow survive, what could she possibly do?
Well, that's what the episode is hinting at the very
end. And then,
end.
Of course, we come to her hearing Bale's message on the broken communicator, and this leads me to believe they're gonna do an old wounds sort of thing.
The possibility of Vader actually going back to Tatooine is increasing.
No,
I mean, I don't think that's what they're gonna do. My thought process is, Obi-Wan and Vader are gonna meet one last time. They're gonna do that whole thing. Kenobi's gonna go. He's gonna return to Tatooine. Reva's gonna be at the Lars homestead. They're gonna pull an old wounds, and either Obi-Wan is gonna fight Reva to the death, or my theory is that Lars is gonna be the one to put a bullet in the back of her head, because one, with their interaction in the first episode, I think that would be a good callback. Or, instead and I hope they don't do this, she turns to the light and leaves. Or, she just decides to give it all up and just go off into the deserts of Tatooine to go somewhere, and then maybe she shows up in the next Jedi Fallen Order game.
Or what about the worst possible scenario that I thought of?
I think the worst possible scenario is her turning to the light.
My prediction is something generic amongst the line of this. Basically, Obi-Wan and Vader are gonna fight, Reva is gonna sacrifice herself, and then, blah blah blah, Obi-Wan survives, Vader, misses Obi-Wan, and something like that.
My theory is how it's gonna go is, to put it simply, Reva is going to go to the Lars homestead to basically do something to Luke. Either get him to have Vader show up in some way, goad Vader into appearing in Tatooine and revealing to Vader that you want this kid for, or something like that. And Kenobi then shows up because Kenobi's tasked to protecting Luke, and he probably fights off Reva, maybe kills her, and then Vader shows up in Tatooine. That's where they have the final duel. So, yeah, basically, kind of an old wounds, but not Reva versus Kenobi. Kenobi versus Vader.
I still think her turning to the light is worse.
No, I think
this game is already fucked beyond belief. Why the hell should I care if Vader goes to Tatooine?
Worst goddamn scenario is Vader somehow arrives to Tatooine. Reva sacrifices herself to save Obi-Wan. Something like that happens.
I guess there is that. Look, which one do you think is the worst scenario?
Ooh, so what were the scenarios again? So Reva turning to the light,
Owen killing Reva when she's almost gonna kill Luke.
I honestly don't. This is just me personally. I don't see either of those things happening.
Which one do you see will happen?
Well, I've told you this before, General, so I'm going to quote pretty much directly what I said to you via DMs a few days back. So here's how I think the final episode's going to go. I think that Vader and the Imperials are pretty much going to tailgate Obi-Wan all the way to Tatooine. Maybe somehow Leia could be returned to Alderaan, or she might be returned to Bail on Tatooine if he's there. Not sure. And Reva will probably get to Tatooine herself. Whether she will try and protect or hunt Luke down, I don't know. So we'll have to see about that. But I think Vader will, as I say, continue tracking Obi-Wan. Hopefully there aren't any BS things that the show tries to pull, like maybe like Vader coming dangerously close to discovering Luke or something like that. But considering other things that the show has screwed up, I'm not going to hold my breath. So if there are any of those, that would just make the final episode even worse. And then the episode will end with the duel that we actually signed up for. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay, so yeah. I just thought of another worst scenario. What if the scenario that I said happens, but on top of that, for some reason, Reva turns to the light side? So combine my bad one with Henson's worst one. You get the worst of both.
You know, Vader returning to Tatooine isn't so far off, seeing how the comics already done that.
Well, there is that, yeah. And not to mention these episodes end is pretty much strongly hinting that the events of that last episode are going to be on Tatooine.
Or there's another scenario I've been thinking. They're not going to resolve this plot of Leia returning and then have some kind of a stupid to be continued and then feature this plot stretched over to season 2.
Oh, God. That would...
I doubt it, but I wouldn't put it past them.
There is that. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how episode 6 handles it. Oh God, I'm already ready for the worst. I'm just ready for it.
I suppose to wrap things up, finally. Overall, I've said before that this show, well, I gave up on the canon some time ago. And yet I'm somehow the most positive one here. Well, I guess that could be the reason I'm the most positive one here. Never thought I'd be saying that in regards to the new canon, but here we are. I'm the most positive one in the room. Thanks, you guys.
Though, to be fair, Henson, you have a good reason for it. The other people that I've seen positive on Kenobi online, they don't have the same reason. Like, they have not given up on Disney Star Wars, or they have not admitted that it's a clusterfuck. They're just happy for it, just taking it at face value, not really actually properly criticizing or analyzing it. In fact, they
have a thematic and literal justification. I say those things in quotations for justifying the plot. So no, they are not ironically / give up the canon. They literally think this is a masterclass of an artwork.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. So, there's that. Are there things I enjoy in the show? Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Is this what they promised us? Oh,
no.
Fuck no. This is not even close to what they promised us. And my friend Donnie even said this. This show should have been the greatest thing they ever put out.
It should have, yeah.
It should have been way better than Mando. And I think Mando is, really fucking overrated. Obviously being better than any of the sequel films is not
exactly a high bar.
That's not an accomplishment.
This show had, all the ingredients to be the greatest thing, at least on film, the new canon has ever done. But they somehow...
fucked it up.
Somehow fucked it up. And that is amazing. The writer, I'm spacing on his name, but I think...
Joby Harold?
Yeah, that. Star Wars, at least modern Star Wars, has an issue with the writers they hire, and the MCU is facing a very similar issue with their current stuff. Just hiring people who I am fairly certain have like either bare bones knowledge of the source material or no knowledge of the source material. Like, here's the thing, and this is a broader thing, but it does relate to Kenobi. There was a purity to the EU and Lucas's 6 films. Whenever I watch his films, whenever I do anything regarding the EU, I never once question whether or not I am experiencing the Star Wars universe. But anytime, for the most part, you do have some diamonds in the rough. Twilight Company is still genuinely amazing. And the books and comics do a better job at actually feeling like Star Wars. But then again, I think those writers actually give a shit. But in terms of the shows and movies, it's just a bad case of I am not watching Star Wars. I have no desire to ever rewatch Mando. No desire to... no one has a desire to rewatch Book of Boba Fett. And even this, like... I should be going through this show. We're already at episode 5, got one more left. I should be, like, eagerly awaiting to get to the next episode and then fucking re-watching this entire show. But even if episode 6 is, like, turns out to be, like, honestly, like, generally the greatest thing ever done, and it somehow makes this show into a masterpiece, even then, that's not going to fix anything. It's not going to change the journey I went on. Not going to change the fact that, at the end of the day, I don't care about this plot. Going into it, you know, I already accepted this ain't my canon, so Vader and Obi-Wan meeting, okay, fine, whatever. I'll get to see these two actors again, meeting up. First time in like 17 years. But I barely got even that. Somebody went into the show with literally the most bare-bones expectations. Was somehow got my expectations subverted to an even lower level. That is honestly an accomplishment. And when this show is over, it's not like I have much to really look forward to. You know, getting these Disney Plus shows, I watch them, and it's like, I see the iconography, but none of it feels like Star Wars. And the volume, I think, does play a role in there, because anytime we get a show that uses the volume, I never feel like there's always something off about it. Honestly, I'd prefer to just have the green screen. Like a full-blown green screen. Because the volume is like an actual physical space. It is limited in how much you can move around, and that's why the scenes are the way they are. They're limited in how much space they have. And so it's just doesn't work a lot of the times. And of course, you know, budget is another thing too. You can't do much in terms of like big shit because, again, these are, at the end of the day, television shows. Mm-hmm. And I am not going to get to a point again where I watch any of this stuff and actually feel like I am watching Star Wars. If they ever get to that point, I will change my tune. But for now, I am watching this shit because even I have like the tiniest bit of investment in it. You know, new Star Wars gives me something to do. But this isn't Star Wars. At least this doesn't feel like Star Wars, and quite frankly, I have zero faith it ever will. And quite frankly, at this point, the only thing that feels like Star Wars are the shows. And funny enough, Bad Batch, so far, and I guess Rebels too, but just referring to the Disney Plus stuff, Bad Batch is the only show where they didn't lie to me. You know, Mandalorian. I was told that that show was going to be about a Mandalorian doing Mando shit in a post-Return of the Jedi galaxy. What I got instead was Baby Yoda. And that became the entire fucking focus. Book of Boba Fett. I was told that was going to be good, and it wasn't. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Told that this was going to be the rematch of the century. It was going to be all about Obi-Wan and Vader meeting up between 3 and 4 and interacting. Getting to see just how awesome that would be. Of course, in my case, it would be just mostly fan fiction. But, you know, I wouldn't want it in the EU, but if it's in the new canon, I have no reason to give a shit. Just give me the 2 actors. But we didn't get that. No, sorry, we couldn't have that. God forbid. Bad Batch is the only series on Disney Plus, Star Wars, where they gave us all the information we needed to know. They sold the show, and that's what we got. You can't say the same thing for any of this other stuff. And whether or not the same can be said for the future shows, I don't fucking know. But what I do know is, I was actually excited. I got excited for this show, and what I got instead was complete garbage. Not as bad as Book of Boba Fett, because honestly, I don't think anything can be as bad as that train wreck. Because there is stuff I actually like in this show. But at the end of the day, it's not my Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. And I don't know if we'll ever get to a point again where anything, at least on film, is going to feel like Star Wars.
There is that. So
You know what I'm seeing nowadays? A trend? Since the original trilogy nostalgia pandering seems not working these days, now they're doing the prequel trilogy nostalgia pandering. While I do appreciate that they're giving prequel material and focusing on prequel actors like Tamara Morrison and Ewan McGregor, you know, if you're gonna bring back these actors, at least put them in materials that actually have substance. Do not expect us to praise your shows just because you have these actors. Sure, it's good to see Tamara Morrison being a badass. Sure, it's good to see, you know, the Jedi Master, Ewan McGregor, but they're not what we are expected or what we saw in the movies all those more than a decade ago. These are not the type we're expecting. Like, you can't just shove old characters and actors and then expect people to praise them just because you have imagery. People are more complex than that. They actually want substance. They actually want progression in character, a engaging story. But like The Force Awakens, it's just now it's prequel trilogy pandering instead of original trilogy pandering. What do you guys think about?
I would say just barely, because we can't compare this kind of pandering to what the OT got. Like, it's not even close. Like, yeah, we got this show, we got Tamara Morrison, but just think, in the first let's just say 5 to 7 years of the new canon, we got mostly OT material, and the sequel era is just a repaint of the OT. While the prequels barely got anything. The occasional mini-series, the occasional novel, TCW Season 7, but like I said, it's not even close. Like, until we get to a point where we're getting like full-on prequel-era content, because at the end of the day, this is still set during the dark times. And I know that's more of a gray area, but I consider the dark times more OT than prequel.
yeah, especially when you consider that the Empire is dominating the galaxy, and we see plenty of Empire imagery. So there's that too.
But we're seeing actors such as, you know, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, and what's that actor who portrayed Bail Organa? I forgot.
Jimmy Smith.
Yeah. Let's also not forget the actor that portrayed Owen in episodes 2 and 3. Him too.
And we should also be getting the woman who did Peru, spacing on her name, but at this point she's definitely showing up in the next, because she was announced, so she's definitely showing up in the next episode.
Yeah, so Joel Edgerton, I think that's his name for Owen.
Yeah, something like
and who I'm not sure who the name of the lady who plays Peru. Do you mind if I say my thoughts on the episode since we're wrapping this up? For me, this was okay, so this show was the first shot I'd given to any of the live-action Disney Star Wars shows, and already this has soured my taste in them so much. And this episode, I would honestly class it currently as the show's runner-up, well, as in the second worst episode, with episode 3 being the current king of that disappointment. And just to quickly, I'm I'm kind of repeating what Henson said here, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Like, the only Disney Star Wars property that I have any inclination to rewatch out of the Disney Plus stuff would be Bad Batch, because that was made in, I would quite confidently say, by people who actually care. The people behind this show, bar the actors probably, do not give a shit, and it shows. I will watch the next episode out of obligation, but this show, considering Obi-Wan is one of my top favourite Star Wars characters, as is Anakin, has really disappointed me, and it's a 99% likelihood I'm not going to bother watching the second season.
Here's the thing. When you say Anakin and Obi-Wan are your favorite characters, you're really referring to EU Anakin and Obi-Wan.
No, I do mean the films as well. Not.
Well, I mean, pre-2014, I guess I should say. Just that in general. You like those versions of the characters.
They are Anakin and Obi-Wan, as generic of an answer as this is, are my favourite Jedi duo of all time. And I know that in Anakin's case he is Vader by this point, but it still doesn't change the fact that this show has done both of those characters and the actors who portray them a massive disservice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. And it does stink. There is that. As for me, well, do you guys already gave your final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, overall, I think this is my favorite episode so far. Gave me some moments I've been waiting for this entire series. But like I said, this whole show is whatever, so also keep that in mind.
Just one final quick thing. Guys, if you want the real Obi-Wan in Exile experience, pick up John Jackson Miller's Kenobi book.
And there's also, the book we previously reviewed, The Life and Legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's also a good one.
Mm-hmm. There's that too, yeah.
It's as I say, you have so many people criticizing Disney Star Wars, over and over and over and over again. It gets to a point where it's like, just shut the fuck up and go to the EU. If you want an Obi-Wan story set during the dark times that badly, you have content. You have an alternative, but these people just never fucking go to it.
Oh, but here's the reason why, because it's not canon.
Ugh.
No, it's more so the fact that bitching about Star Wars gets them that sweet, sweet ad revenue.
Oh, yeah. Sort of.
It's not like any of them really give a shit. They only do it for the money.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't say the same thing for the people in the comments section, but still, guys, if you hate Disney Star Wars, if you don't like the new canon, you have a great alternative, and the best part is that most of it, well, at least the big stuff like the novels and comics, is that stuff is easily accessible. But of course, not all of it is. Young reader stuff get fucked. But you have access to a good majority of content. You have no reason not to read or play any of it. So if you're dissatisfied, fucking go to it. Just look at my collection. You literally have so much material you can choose from.
Well, there's also the argument that they probably don't want to read through it because it's not live action stuff or an animated show or anything like that.
There's the one good thing that's called using your goddamn imagination.
As there is that, so.
EU haters, as we know, dismiss it as fan fiction, so a lot of them don't bother with it.
I would say, there is that, but it's also the fact that a lot of people don't like to read. There's a reason why the audience for a book is a lot smaller than the audience for a movie. But that's besides the point. General, what were you going to say for your final thoughts?
Yeah, so my final thoughts on this episode, it's, well, Not very good. Obviously, the best part is the flashback between Anakin versus Obi-Wan in their Episode 2 outfits on Coruscant. That's the best part so far. And but the rest goes either middling to pretty much bad in certain areas. So not really that enthralled. And Episode 6, well, I'm certainly going to be interested in seeing how it goes. That's gonna be fun. So yeah,
Which will be over.
yeah, it will finally be over. And with Episode 6, yeah, we're pretty much gonna I guess go into detail on analyzing, I guess, not just Episode 6, but also a whole show in a way. So we can pretty much just say how it went from start to finish. So yeah, there is that. But anyway, so that's my full thoughts. We'll be seeing you guys on Episode 6 in the next coming days. So yeah, so this is the end for this podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars video. Bye bye.
See you in hell.
Live long and prosper, or not.
May the Force be with you.